In the first instance, I can't promise a debate in government time, but it may be another adjournment debate under your auspices, Mr. Speaker.
Your old heart. Daniel Zack.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The National Data Strategy was unveiled recently, and I'm sure the Leader of the House knows how important it is that we secure a data adequacy agreement with the European Union soon. But he may also have noticed that commentators were surprised at what they termed the buccaneering language used in some of it, which I would rather attribute to perhaps Mr. Dominic Cummings. Given the importance of securing data flows with the European Union, can he make time for a statement from a minister on this very important issue soon?
Mr. Speaker, I just mentioned that the culture, media and sport and digital questions will be on the 5th of November, so remember the 5th of November for other purposes. The National Data Strategy is a very good strategy, and we need to be buccaneering about it because it may determine our economic future, and if that is coming from Dominic Cummings, all power to his elbow.
Gibson.
Mr. Speaker, in 1821 this House passed the Stockton and Darlington Railway Act, enabling Darlington to become the birthplace of the railways. Our World Heritage Bridge featured on the £5 note with locomotion number 1 travelling across it, and my constituents are petitioning for that engine to stay in Darlington. We have grand plans to develop a rail heritage quarter, in part funded by a successful Towns Fund bid. Our nation will have the opportunity to celebrate the 200th anniversary of the railways in 2025. Being central to our country's identity and economy, I wonder if the Leader of the House would be able to find time to debate how our nation might mark and celebrate this significant milestone, highlighting the significant contributions of our railways past, present and future.
Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend is absolutely right to raise this important anniversary, though neither of us were there for the bill being introduced in 1821, it being little before both our time. But locomotion number 1 to Darlington, Darlington's central importance to the story of our railways and the community around that. The Government Towns Fund will spend £3.6 billion of taxpayers' money in town centres and high streets to level up our regions and create places across the country where people want to live and thrive. So Darlington has its own bid in, and I wish it good luck. The 200th anniversary is an opportunity for international attention to turn to Darlington. And it is worth noting that the government, Her Majesty's government, has the biggest railway building programme since that happy era when Queen Victoria was on the throne.
Judith Cummings.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, the government took out a full-page advert in my local paper to inform people of the new COVID alert level across Bradford. However, the advert got the tier wrong. It said that we are in the medium tier, when in fact Bradford and the whole of West Yorkshire is in the high level. From statements via Twitter to late-night announcements, this is more staggering incompetence from a government that is losing its grip on this pandemic. The very least we can all expect is accurate information on new rules. So can we have a debate in government time on government communications during this pandemic?
Mr. Speaker, the government has done a great deal to support local newspapers through this pandemic by placing adverts in them, and that has been an important way of helping a community facility that is very much appreciated. I would urge people to look up the regulations on the government website to find out what tier they are in and what the regulations mean for them. But I'm glad to tell the Honourable Lady that there will be 2 debates on COVID when it will be possible to raise these issues.
We now come to Andrew Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Please, can we have a debate on the role of skills in the levelling up agenda, which is so central to this government's priorities? I think it would be very valuable to explore the role of skills, particularly digital skills, and it's digital skills particularly that businesses raise with me more than any other issue in the whole sphere of employment.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my honourable friend and agree with him that finding innovative ways of advancing our digital skills is vital to our levelling up agenda and building back stronger from the pandemic. The government has established local digital skills partnerships in 7 regions across England to bring together cross-sector, regional and national partners to work to improve the skills of the current workforce, advance digital inclusion and build thriving regional economies. And there is in addition a £3 million digital skills programme in Greater Manchester and Lancashire, Mr. Speaker, to boost digital training skills. So I think it is an important point that my honourable friend is raising.
Jim Shannon.
Mr Speaker, bearing in mind the tremendous decision in the criminal courts in the Republic of Ireland to sentence the first Garda Síochána, that's a police murderer, since the mid-1990s with a 40-year sentence, will the Leader of the House agree to a debate to highlight the needs for similar changes to be made in the courts of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland to ensure those who murder service personnel will know they face enhanced sentence, especially in light of the leniency in Northern Ireland, which has left RUC and PSNI widows and families feeling that the justice they achieve for their loved ones is not on par with the loss they still face today?
Mr Speaker, the Government unquestionably owes a tremendous debt of gratitude to the brave men and women of the Royal Ulster Constabulary and the Police Service of Northern Ireland for their incredible work in keeping the people of Northern Ireland safe. The Honourable Gentleman should be commended for his efforts to ensure that the victims of terrorist violence receive the justice and support to which they are entitled. The sacrifice of those who have paid the ultimate price in performance of their duties must not be forgotten. Criminal justice is of course devolved in Northern Ireland, but we are aware that under the Northern Ireland Executive Tackling Paramilitarism programme, the Department of Justice has committed to a review of sentencing policy, and I would urge him to get involved with that review and make his views known.
Mark Eastwood.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, I represent a football-mad constituency, with the majority being Leeds United and Huddersfield Town supporters. In Germany, France, Italy and Spain, fans have been allowed back into their stadia, albeit in much smaller numbers, to allow for social distancing in an outdoor environment. As a proud Leeds United supporter myself, would my right honourable friend consider allowing a debate on getting fans back into football stadiums safely, which would help football clubs at all levels struggling financially throughout this pandemic?
Mr Speaker, this is clearly an important issue for many members of Parliament, and the Government is committed to getting spectators back into stadiums as soon as it is safe to do so. We will continue to work with a range of sports to understand how spectators may be allowed back safely. This does include the creation of a new Sports Technology Innovation Working Group of sporting bodies and health experts to analyse new technologies which might support this. The Government appreciates more must be done to allow fans back to stadiums safely, and there is good news that the Premier League is spending £50 million to support grassroots football throughout the crisis, and I would remind my honourable friend about the 5th of November, when the Secretary of State for Digital Culture, Media and Sport will be at the dispatch box.
Let's head to Scotland with Hannah Bardell. Hannah Bardell.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. This week, the Council of Europe and its 47 member states adopted the report Drug Policy and Human Rights in Europe, a Baseline Study. It advocates for a health and human rights-based approach to drug use and addiction, and recognises that the criminal justice approach that the likes of the UK government take are failing people across the world. I was the proud author of that report, and I hope that the UK government will now adopt all aspects of it to save lives and protect communities. So can we have a debate on drugs policy and human rights, and ensure that the relevant powers to deal with drugs, drug use and addiction are devolved to Scotland, so we can ensure we meet our international obligations and can implement best practice for Scotland and her people?
Leader of the House.
Mr Speaker, I'm sure the Government will look at the report that the Honourable Lady refers to, but it will not surprise her to know that there are no current plans to change drugs policy.
Let us head to Wellingborough with Peter Bone.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Lord Frost and the British EU negotiating team have returned from Brussels this morning and are about to brief the Prime Minister on whether to continue the negotiations or whether to call it a day and prepare for a no-deal trade Brexit. Could the Leader of the House say whether there are any plans for the Prime Minister to come to the House tonight to make a statement, or whether he plans to make the statement to the House on Monday, which will be a good day, as it's my birthday, and I would like to know, as a very good birthday present, the decision.
To the House.
Mr Speaker, the House will be on fete on Monday in celebration of my honourable friend's birthday. The bunting will be up and the state trumpeters will be borrowed, if possible, from Buckingham Palace, so that we may have a proper fanfare. But unfortunately, I cannot at this point promise particular statements.
Kevin Brennan.
Speaker, as it's my birthday tomorrow,
Can that be done for me first, particularly since the Prime Minister cancelled my birthday party last year because of the special sitting we had to have on a Saturday, but because of Brexit. But can I just ask him, can we have a debate about growing concern about public appointments and the awarding of contracts by this government? Government really shouldn't be about a bunch of people lecturing everyone about the spending of taxpayers' money while organising the state to ensure that they and their friends get a fat piece for themselves.
Mr. Speaker, that's an outrageous question beneath the honourable gentleman.
John Morrison.
Mr. Speaker, in light of the Darren Grimes case, where it seems it's now permissible for a man to be subject to police investigation for simply asking a question, or welcome to life itself, would my right honourable friend agree with me that we are endangering free press by allowing and endorsing censorship disguised in the sugarcoating of social justice?
Mr. Speaker, the police are obviously operationally independent, so I wouldn't want to speak about a particular case. But I would say this, that freedom of speech is one of the pillars of our Constitution. Without freedom of speech, you find that democracy fails because you have no ability to question what people are doing and what people are saying. And we know that over the centuries, regimes that attack freedom of speech often do so through legal means. We used to have criminal libel in this country, which was used in the 18th century to silence people who said disobliging things about the government. We do not want to be in the situation where the laws are used to stop freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is valuable whether it is responsible speech or irresponsible speech, as long as it doesn't incite hatred or violence. That is the key, and freedom of speech must be protected by this House.
Alex Davies-Jones.
Mr. Speaker, and with Bonfire Night on the horizon, I know people across the country will be preparing to celebrate in ways that will likely differ to celebrations in years gone by. With planned public displays across the country and in my own constituency cancelled left, right and centre, I know more and more people are likely to want to celebrate at home. Yet we must remember how dangerous using fireworks can be to both from a health and safety point of view, but also to environment, with animals suffering from distress as long with those suffering from PTSD and with mental health conditions. So with this in mind, will the Leader of the House please commit to a debate on government time to discuss greater regulations in terms of fireworks sales?
No, I'm sorry, I won't, Mr. Speaker. I think the regulation's about right and fireworks are fun.
We now come to Christine Jardine, 38 withdrawn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. As a Liberal Democrat, who's also coincidentally a motorist, it has come to none of us could possibly miss the fact that today is the 15th of October, the deadline imposed by the Prime Minister for negotiations with the European Union. And as recently as last week, one of the UK Brexit negotiators, Lord David Frost, stood by the Prime Minister's statement that the UK could walk away from negotiations if an agreement wasn't reached by today. All we have in this place are rumours about micro deals and speculation. Can the Leader please explain why we have not had a ministerial statement and when we can expect one?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When the Honourable Lady said we must remember it's the 15th of October, I had a nasty moment because it is, of course, my wife's birthday. But fortunately, I hadn't forgotten, which would have left me in a good deal of trouble if I had. But her question is a very important one, and it is important that this House is updated in reasonable time about what the situation is. Currently, there is nothing to update, otherwise the House would be updated.
40 is withdrawn, so in order to allow the safe exit of honourable members participating in this item of business and the safe arrival of those participating in the next, I'm suspending the House for 3 minutes. Order. Are you ready? Secretary of State ready? Order, order. I call the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care to make a statement. Secretary of State.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, with permission, I'd like to make a statement on coronavirus. The threat remains grave and serious. In Europe, positive cases are up 40% from 1 week ago. And in Italy, Belgium and the Netherlands, they've doubled in the last fortnight. And here we sadly saw the highest figure for daily deaths since early June. Mr. Speaker, let us be under no illusions about the danger posed by this virus. Coronavirus is deadly, and it's now spreading exponentially in the UK. We must act to prevent more hospitalisations, more deaths, and more economic damage. Because we know from recent history that when this virus keeps growing, unless we act together to get it under control, this is the result. Our strategy is to suppress the virus, supporting the economy, education, and the NHS, and local action is at the centre of our response. The virus is not spread evenly, and the situation is particularly severe in some parts of the country. Through the Joint Biosecurity Centre and through NHS Test and Trace, we've built up a detailed picture of where and how this virus is spreading. This week's NHS Test and Trace statistics show that testing capacity is up, testing turnaround times are down, and the distance travelled for tests is down too. And thanks to this capacity and this analysis, we've been able to take a more targeted approach, keeping a close eye on the situation in local areas, bearing down hard through restrictions on a local level where they're necessary. Now, I know that these restrictions are difficult for people. I hate the fact that we have to bring them in, but it is essential that we do bring them in, both to keep people safe and to prevent greater economic damage in the future. And when a virus is moving fast, we cannot stay still. If we act collectively, we know we can control the virus because we have done it before. I believe in the people of this country. And I believe, in fact, I know that the people of this country want to control the virus to protect their loved ones, their lives, and their livelihoods. And I believe from the bottom of my heart that acting together, we can. We must take firm and balanced decisions to keep this virus under control. This is the only way to protect lives and livelihoods. And we must act now. Delayed action means more deaths from COVID, it means more non-COVID deaths, and it means more economic pain later, because the virus comes down slower than it goes up. So we should stop it going up in the first place. And unless we suppress the virus, we cannot return to the economy we've had. Unless we suppress the virus, we cannot keep non-COVID NHS services going. And unless we suppress the virus, we cannot keep the elderly and the vulnerable safe and secure. Now, Mr. Speaker, I didn't come into politics to put restrictions on people's lives, and I want people to have as much freedom as possible, subject to not harming others. But the nature of this virus means that any one of us can inadvertently pass it on without even knowing. That is the liberal case for action. And I believe that the British people get that. But I want that action to be as targeted as feasibly possible. Local action is one of the best weapons we have. And Mr. Speaker, we have seen how local action can flatten the curve, for example, in Leicester and Bolton. This is the principle that sits behind our new, simpler system of local COVID alert levels. I'm pleased that the House approved these measures earlier this week. Yesterday, I chaired a meeting of the Local Action Committee Gold Command. This brings together the best data, the best clinical and public health expertise to look at how the virus is spreading. Turning first to parts of the country where prevalence of the virus is highest. Discussions are ongoing with local leaders on moving from high to very high. These are areas where transmission rates are rising at the sharpest rate and where we see a very real risk to the local NHS. The Liverpool City region moved into the very high level yesterday, and I want to thank the local leadership for their public service and cross-party teamwork.
Now, we all want to provide our children and grandchildren a sustainable future. And in order to be able to deliver that, we need to step up our combat against climate change. In that perspective, the European Union has a very important role. And that is why Sweden, together with a number of like-mindeds, took the initiative to now talk about the necessity to also stand behind the Commission's proposal, making sure that we decide a new 2030 target in December, meaning that we wanted to reduce the emissions by at least 55%. We think that is very important now. It's an important signal. It's an important action to make sure that we can provide a sustainable future.
Good afternoon. I'm looking forward to today's meeting of the European Union Council, particularly in relation to the range of issues that we are going to discuss. Chief among those today obviously will be the Brexit negotiations, and I'm looking forward to an assessment by Michel Barnier, our Chief Negotiator, in relation to the state of play of those talks right now. Obviously the issues of considerable concern remain a level playing field. That's important for Europe. Governance of any subsequent deal that will be arrived at between the United Kingdom and Europe, and clearly fisheries, which is very important to us in Ireland, that our coastal communities are protected in an overall deal on Brexit through a sensible and fair fisheries deal. In addition to that, we will be discussing climate change, and Ireland shares the ambition of the European Union Commission in terms of setting a new target to 2030 in terms of reducing emissions by 55% of the 1990 level. And in addition, then we will be discussing the European Union's relationship with Africa. Ireland has long been a champion of stronger relationship between the European Union and Africa. And finally, of course, we will be discussing COVID-19 and working towards greater coordination among European Union member states, particularly in the area of travel, quarantine frameworks, and critically procurement of the vaccines and subsequent distribution of vaccines, which is very, very important indeed. So, crynw anna hochtach yn Siohanov, gan awrs ceandas na haver is tachti, no an bratamacht, agus corsi isgedachta, o hef winter na herden, tashi shin tachtach, tamid eg lorog, conra crimshehoch, idir an Bratin agus an Europe, model a corsi tradala, corsi achnamichte, agus beme nisteni eg plele, vuktaran the Frank Emmanuel Macron, model a corsi isgedachta, agus an bratamacht go generalta. Gormagwif.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I think it was very important the European Council that we discussed for the first time the problematic of COVID-19, and I was really pushing on this, and I think this is the most important in this moment for all of us, COVID-19. And the Czech Republic was very successful during the first wave, and now we are one of the worst, unfortunately, and what we need is more coordination on medical equipment, or maybe on bed capacity, maybe on nurses, possibilities to help. So on the vaccine, because now the COVID-19 is coming back, and of course this is a big problem. Second biggest problem in the near future is Brexit, so I hope that we will finally convince United Kingdom and Michel Barnier. I hope he will be successful, and we have this deadline on 15th of December. Climate change and the new target of 55%. I think every country has a different energy mix, and we have to take it into consideration. So if we agree on 55% average in EU, Czech Republic don't have any problem, but there are some countries which can reach more, and Czech Republic cannot reach this target. So in average, if we really achieve this 55%, would be fine. It will be the first exchange of opinions about climate change, and we will come back on this more seriously in December. So I think these are the most important topics to be discussed during the Council. Thank you.
Few words. Okay, cross. A few words on Brexit. We very appreciate the efforts of Mr. Barnier and his team in order to finalize this deal, and everybody is interested to have the deal closed. And so far, we have to intensify our efforts in order to bridge or to try to bridge remaining gaps, for example, fisheries, level playing field, and governance. This is very important topics. We also should be prepared for both options, for both alternatives, deal and no deal. In this case, we need a very clear contingency plan what we do in case of no deal. And anyway, no matter what will be the scenario, I think it's very important to keep United Kingdom as close as possible to European Union. So this is the interest of every country of European Union and European Union as a whole. Belarus. Unfortunately, I have to say that the situation is not improving, and we see the efforts of the regime to penalize and to prosecute the people of Belarus, peaceful protesters of Belarus. I think that we need, as a European Union, we need a coordinated approach, coordinated policy regarding this regime. We should not be misled by individual actions of Alexander Lukashenko. For example, I have in mind his meeting with the imprisoned persons in the prison, opposition leaders in the prison. I think that this is only the attempt to buy the time in order to adjust and in order to control the situation. So in this case, the European Union should consider the second stage or second package of the sanctions, which could be imposed on Belarus. And I would like to use this opportunity and to say thank you very much for our colleagues, which showed solidarity with Poland and Lithuania, because those two countries were attacked by the regime. You know that Alexander Lukashenko required to reduce the number of personnel in the embassies of those both countries, and our colleagues showed the solidarity by recalling the ambassadors for consultations and also by using our methods and diplomacy. This is very important and this is very valuable for us. Climate change. We are very ambitious in this field, and Lithuania did a lot since the regaining of independence. Since 1990, we already reduced the CO2 emission by 58%. This time we have to do this in much shorter period. In this case, we need a very fair burden sharing mechanism, which could be based on GDP per capita in market prices. And of course, we need individual evaluation of possibilities of each individual country of European Union, including my country, Lithuania. In this case, we can prepare very comprehensive, detailed and targeted plan how to deal with the climate change until 2030. Thank you.
Pred nami je zelo zahteven Evropski svet. Veliko kompleksnih vprašanj je na dnevnem redu. Pričakujemo dober briefing o situaciji v zvezi z pogajanjem z Združenim kraljestvom glede Brexita. In glede na to, da se čas izteka, tudi vse tiste potrebne odločitve, ki bodo zagotavljale, da Evropska unija tukaj še naprej nastopa enotna v zaščiti, enakopravni zaščiti interesov vseh svojih članic. Zanimivo bo tudi razprava o podnebnih spremembah in o bolj ambicioznih ciljih, kjer pa je potrebno zelo dobro pretehtati med ceno za doseganje teh ciljev, ki se na koncu vedno odrazi tudi v slabšem odnosu do okolja, kolikor je ta cena previsoka. Skratka, gre za zelo pomembne odločitve, ki bodo bistveno vplivale na kvaliteto življenja v prihodnosti vseh Evropejcev. Zelo pomembno, čeprav to neposredno ni na dnevnem redu, pa bo tudi zelo pomembna pa bo tudi, upajmo, naša enotna reakcija na dogajanje v vzhodnem Sredozemlju, potem ko je Evropski svet na svojem zadnjem srečanju sprejel tako imenovani dvojni pristop do Turčije, do provokacij Turčije v odnosu do naših članic Evropske unije, Grčije in Cipra. Jaz mislim, da mora Evropski svet tokrat dati zelo jasno sporočilo, da ta dvojni pristop, kjer je tudi zelo veliko spodbud ali pa korenčkov, velja, če se vsi držimo pravil. Glede na to, da je prišlo do provokacij, jaz mislim, da mora Evropska unija na to enotno odreagirati in se z vso svojo močjo postaviti za interese Grčije in Cipra, ker to so hkrati tudi interesi Evropske unije. Hvala lepa.
Bonjour. Nous faisons face partout en Europe à la détérioration de la situation concernant le Covid-19. Ça veut dire que l'on doit continuer à engager davantage de coopération sur le plan européen. On aura l'occasion demain matin de se concentrer avec les 27 chefs d'État et de gouvernement sur les questions très concrètes. Comment améliore-t-on les capacités de tracing? Comment tente-t-on d'harmoniser l'organisation des quarantaines pour faire reculer cette menace? C'est une menace lourde pour beaucoup de pays européens qui conduit à prendre des mesures de nouveau restrictives. We will have the occasion tomorrow to tackle COVID-19 again. We know that it's important to make more progress at the level of the coordination, the cooperation between the member states. The last days we took important decisions, but it's not enough. We need to continue to develop more cooperation, more coordination at the European level in order to limit the spread of the virus. We will have the occasion also this afternoon to tackle the future relationship with the UK. We want an agreement, but we want also to protect the level playing field. It's a question of fairness, it's a question of jobs, it's also the question of the integrity of the single market. We are ready to continue to negotiate with the UK. This is a difficult negotiation, we all know that, and we will have the occasion to have an exchange of views with all the European leaders. And today we'll have also the occasion to have an orientation debate on climate change. We need to take a decision by the end of the year on our goals by 2030, and it will be the occasion to identify what are the important building blocks in order to make an agreement possible in December. Climate change is a very important topic. This is also with the European Green Deal our growth strategy for the future of Europe and for the future of the world. It's key, and we really want to play a very strong role in order to tackle this important challenge. Nous aurons l'occasion de débattre du Brexit avec les chefs d'État et de gouvernement. Nous voulons un accord, mais pas un accord à n'importe quel prix, parce que nous considérons en effet que préserver le level playing field, garantir l'intégrité du marché intérieur, c'est une question d'équité, c'est aussi la question de la protection des jobs en Europe, faire en sorte qu'il y ait une compétition qui soit loyale, qui soit équitable entre les entreprises européennes, petites et grandes, mais également les entreprises britannique. Et enfin, on aura l'occasion d'aborder la question du changement climatique de nouveau. Nous avons fait un choix important il y a un an, l'ambition de la neutralité climat à l'horizon 2050. Ça veut dire que l'on doit adapter nos ambitions pour 2030. Le débat sera stratégique aujourd'hui. On va identifier les éléments au départ duquel on pourra réussir, je l'espère, à prendre une décision sur les objectifs communs 2030 et cela avant la fin de cette année. Merci.
autour de cette ambition. Demain matin, nous aurons à discuter également de sujets internationaux, l'Afrique, et préparer notre sommet de décembre. Là-dessus, je réaffirmerai à quel point il est important de poursuivre les initiatives prises ces derniers mois à l'égard de l'Afrique. Soutien sanitaire pour un continent qui a besoin justement d'être soutenu et accompagné. Soutien aussi financier, en particulier confirmer notre moratoire sur la dette et les annulations de dettes qui permettront à l'Afrique de faire face aux défis sociaux et économiques post-Covid. Nous aurons l'occasion de revenir sur la Turquie, le conflit au Haut-Karabakh. Et je ne veux pas ici en dire davantage, mais nos discussions de demain, à coup sûr, traduiront l'exigence qui doit être la nôtre compte tenu des événements récents. Enfin, sur les sanctions qui ont été prises ces derniers jours à l'égard de plusieurs responsables russes suite à l'affaire Navalny. Je veux ici redire, en soutien plein et entier avec l'Allemagne, que nous avons donc conduit les investigations qui ont permis de caractériser ce qui s'était passé, cette tentative d'assassinat. Nous avons caractérisé ce qui a été une agression chimique et nous restons attachés, nous Européens, à la lutte contre les armes chimiques. Et en soutien plein et entier, en coopération avec l'Allemagne, nous avons donc poussé pour en effet que ces sanctions soient prises. C'est toujours le même chemin, celui d'un dialogue transparent mais exigeant avec la Russie auquel je crois. La Russie est notre voisin. La Russie partage ce continent, mais nous ne saurions céder, renoncer à nos principes et nos ambitions, en particulier quand il s'agit des armes chimiques. Voilà ce que je voulais vous dire avant de commencer ce conseil dans quelques instants. Merci à vous. Je ne ferai aucun commentaire de politique nationale. Merci beaucoup.
Ja, guten Tag, meine Damen und Herren. Ich freue mich auf den Europäischen Rat. Wir werden beginnen mit einem Gespräch mit dem Präsidenten des Europäischen Parlaments. Die Finanzverhandlungen befinden sich ja in einem entscheidenden Stadium. Und ich werde noch mal als Ratspräsidentschaft deutlich machen, dass wir schnell Ergebnisse brauchen. Denn die finanzielle Vorausschau, die Finanzen für die nächsten 7 Jahre hängen eng zusammen mit dem Next Generation Fund für Europa und mit den Eigenmittelbeschlüssen, die dann eben infolge dieses Next Generation Fund auch in den nationalen Parlamenten gefasst werden müssen. Und wir wollen von der Seite des Europäischen Rates natürlich sicherstellen, dass wir zu Beginn des nächsten Jahres wirklich auch die Ergebnisse haben. Wir werden danach über den Austritt Großbritanniens aus der Europäischen Union sprechen, unsere gemeinsame Position hier noch einmal festlegen. Wir wollen ein Abkommen, aber natürlich nicht um jeden Preis, sondern es muss ein faires Abkommen sein, von dem beide Seiten profitieren können. Aber es lohnt sich alle Mühe und wir werden die Verhandlungen von Herrn Barnier und Ursula von der Leyen der Kommission natürlich unterstützen. Heute Abend werden wir über das Thema Klima sprechen. Uns stehen ja hier noch wichtige Beschlüsse ins Haus während der deutschen Ratspräsidentschaft bis Dezember. Es wird heute eine erste Orientierungsdebatte sein, aber auch die ist sehr, sehr wichtig, denn auch noch in diesem Jahr findet ja eine Folgekonferenz von Madrid statt, wenn auch virtuell. Und so muss die Europäische Union hier ihr Gesamtziel für 2030 auch noch einmal verbessern. Und deshalb wäre es wichtig, dass wir bis Dezember eine Vereinbarung erreichen unter den Mitgliedstaaten, dass wir ein Reduktionsziel von 55%, wie es ja auch von der Kommission vorgeschlagen wurde, unterstützen. Deutschland wird das jedenfalls tun. Also wir haben wichtige Dinge zu beraten. Herzlichen Dank.
Hello. Evo danas uoči redovitoga sastanka Europskog vijeća nekoliko riječi o ključnim temama. Prva tema koja je na dnevnom redu su daljnje zajedničke aktivnosti u borbi protiv COVID-19. Vjerujem da ćemo danas, nakon što se na nižim razinama vijeća dogovorio smjer preporuka i djelovanja, ostvariti dodatne zajedničke iskorake u borbi protiv ove globalne pandemije i sa zdravstvenog aspekta. Isto tako priželjkujemo i vrlo brzu operativnost našeg dogovora iz srpnja o instrumentu EU iduće generacije, novom višegodišnjem financijskom okviru okviru koji trebaju poslužiti za oporavak gospodarstva i jačanje njegove otpornosti. Hrvatska, kada je riječ o COVID-19, inzistira na takozvanom subnacionalnom pristupu koji se referira na epidemiološku situaciju u pojedinim županijama. Primijetili smo da je to argument koji se dobro primio i koji će, ja sam uvjeren, biti prihvaćen i gledan na taj način od svih država članica jer nam on ide na korist, osobito u svjetlu onoga što smo imali tijekom turističke sezone, ali i inače. Od ostalih tema zadovoljni smo da ćemo raspravljati o izvješću glavnog pregovarača Michela Barniera o svemu onome što se događa u procesu pregovora između Ujedinjene Kraljevine i Europske unije. Tu želimo jednake uvjete za sve, jednake mogućnosti između Europske unije i Ujedinjene Kraljevine i nadamo se da će kompromisi biti postignuti do kraja ove kalendarske godine. Kada je riječ o pitanjima klime, Hrvatska načelno podržava ambicije da se emisije CO2 dovedu na 55%. Mislimo da smo sa te strane izrazito u dobroj poziciji s obzirom na rezultate koje imamo danas i na način kako smo spremni podržavati razvoj klimatske politike i ostvarenje klimatske neutralnosti. Na tom tragu vjerujem da ćemo dobiti temeljita izvješća Europske komisije, a voditi pritom računa o različitom stupnju gospodarske i industrijske razvijenosti pojedinih država članica. Sutra očekujemo raspravu o odnosima sa Afrikom kao i niz drugih vanjsko-političkih tema koje su globalno gledajući u odnosu na ove druge teme donekle podredne. Hvala vam lijepo.